Welcome to Opinions in 10, online posts and biblical opinions in under 10 minutes. Starting now. In a month, I'll be homeless and I don't know what to do. So I live with my mom and two brothers on Section 8 housing. Around June of 2022, I got a job that made about $19 an hour. So naturally, the portion of rent that we needed to pay increased. The setup that we had was that me and my brothers pay for all of the other bills and my mom pays for rent. When she saw that the rent went up, she just stopped paying rent. Didn't tell anyone that she stopped, didn't ask us to help start paying with rent. She just stopped paying and didn't say anything. We found out in December of 2024, after a year and a half of the landlord trying to get payments out of my mom. If it wasn't for the landlord being kind, we would be homeless already. I struck up a deal with him that we would pay him every week so that we can pay off the debt. But 10 months later, he's telling us that is not enough for him. That what we are giving him is only a portion of what that unit goes for, and he wants us gone by the end of the week or he's calling the sheriff to get us out. Tomorrow, I'm going to call him and offer him some money that my friend gave me, $2,000, to allow us to stay one more month so that we can get a storage unit and look for shelter. I can't believe I'm going to be homeless because of what my mom did. And this entire time, she hasn't been working and hasn't so much as apologized. She's been acting like this is God's plan and that this situation was out of her control. I'm so upset I don't know what to do. I'm 24 years old and live in New York City. Rent is high here. We had a perfect arrangement and she just ruined it. I think I'm going to finally bite the bullet and cut my family off after this. They are looking for family and friends to let them live with them for a while or to go to a family shelter, but I don't want to go. I never want to see any of them ever again. Additionally, for context, because of the extreme non-payment, we lost our Section 8 and were denied it again upon reapplying. For added context, I mentioned cutting off my entire family because they are all like this. To this day, they are all incredibly immature, unstable, angry, and bigoted, and being around them has always brought me nothing but unrest and pain. So I am going to use this situation to be free of it all. Okay, so what you're saying here is pretty simple if you boil it down to its elements. Your mom had an agreement with the landlord to pay a certain sum of money at a certain time in order to obtain usage of his property as a shelter. This is a pretty standard agreement in all areas of the country. It is, however, understood that there is an obligation to follow through with your part of the agreement. Any attempt to not do so is called theft and is and should be punishable by law. That this is the point in the narrative where things begin to take a downward turn for you guys. Because as you said, she saw that rent increased and just stopped paying rent. Mind you, she didn't pay part of the rent. She didn't try to work something out with the landlord. She didn't try to make ends meet somehow. She just stopped paying. As to whether or not she expected the increased rent to simply vanish altogether when she did so, we don't know. But we do know that immediately she stopped doing anything about it. But as we read on, the problem only gets worse. Because not only did she stop paying rent, effectively attempting to steal occupancy from her landlord, but she didn't tell anybody else that was affected by this decision. She either expected the landlord to say, "Well, that's okay. Who needs rent? Just take the place." Or she expected to end up out on the street with the two of you with no explanation as to how you got there. If the landlord hadn't talked to you, you may still be under the illusion that everything is fine, not knowing that homelessness awaits you in a week's time. But if you can believe it, that's not the end either, because she then goes on to blame her poor decisions on God, as if God had not been clear when he said, "Thou shalt not steal." So now she's looking for housing with family and friends, but now the question arises as to whether or not this will be a repeated pattern. Will she move in under the guise of agreeing to a set of expectations and then just not do them and call it God's plan? I'm going to rely on Solomon here. Proverbs 25:19 says, "Relying on an untrustworthy person in a time of trouble is like relying on a broken tooth or an unsteady leg." Just like the person in the proverb who is trying to eat with a broken tooth or trying to hobble to the store with a leg that doesn't work right, a person who feels no obligation to follow through will always cause a painful mess in the end. The reason is that we all live in society together. When you make an agreement or give your word, you are making an agreement or giving your word to someone. Someone who will then take your word and make plans that depend on your word. But you have to remember that your word is the foundation of all of these plans. And when you just decide that you're just not going to do what you agreed to, then all of the plans that were built on top of your word come crashing down. When you give your word, you give another person the right to expect you to follow through with it. If you don't do what you said, then you are unreliable. That's the hard truth of this. I noticed that the poster didn't ask for any advice here, even though it was posted in the advice section. He complained about his family and then resolved to cut off contact. I would advise against this. Yes, you should put some distance between you and your mom and set appropriate boundaries. But always keep a presence in that relationship. Forgiveness is not the same thing as stupidity. It's the simple act of not collecting on a debt that someone may owe you, be it spiritual or physical. It doesn't mean that you have to get right back into that toxic situation again. But if I were you, I would get out of New York City if at all possible. $19 an hour isn't going to go far in New York. Move out of state, start a life for yourself, and check in on your mom every once in a while. That'll do it for today. God bless.